especially given the current realities of reduced budgetary resources?
Well, first, if you're looking at the quality of academic programs, unfortunately, quality very often doesn't matter to a lot of the state budgeting authorities, because quantity is what's usually measured, and metrics usually are defined by quantity. But there isn't a university in the country that can't be more efficient in one way or another. The question is, can you make the right choices that can grow the university while not cutting it in a way that hurts programs or the entire university? And academic programs can be judged, A, by the national rankings that they have, B, by the accreditations that they have, but I say even more importantly by their reputation among the business community and the academic community that's hiring graduates and that's bringing them into graduate and professional schools. And that's an often ignored part of the quality of an academic program. You've got to look at the quantity of graduates that they're producing, but you also need to find a way to really look at quality in an honest way. And I think that the metric that one develops as the result of figuring out whether graduates are really competitive with the rest of the world is the most important one to develop.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wartell.
Our next question is from Ms. Laparoli.
Personnel costs are a significant portion of campus budgets. If faced with a situation of reducing personnel due to decreases in state support and enrollment decreases resulting from increased admission standards, how would you go about doing this if faced with having to decide to cut personnel?
Well, the flip answer is carefully. but when you look at the way that many institutions do that, I think it's really quite inappropriate. Very often it's done as folks retire and their positions aren't refilled, or folks leave and their positions aren't refilled. But you have to do it in a much more intentional fashion. And that is looking at programs. You do your best to not interfere in individuals' lives, to not have a catastrophic effect on individuals' lives, because those scars remain with the university for a long time. So you try to reduce every area that you can before you reduce permanent personnel. But when you have to reduce permanent personnel, you have to do it in an open and fair and reasonably logical fashion. Very often that isn't done either because many organizations aren't very transparent in the way they make decisions. But transparency in the decision making is an important step toward having people trust what you're doing and having people accept the results of really painful decisions.
Our next question is from Mr. Guidry.
Dr. Wartell, a strong senior staff is critical to the leading of an institution. What qualities are you going to look for in selecting and evaluating these individuals?
Well, it'd be good to start with competence. When you look at folks who fill jobs, you look for competence, you look for a work ethic, you look for a loyalty to the institution, not so much to individuals, but to the institution that they're going to work for, and you try to cast the net for people as widely as you can. And you know, it's a fairly short answer, but I think it's just common sense to do that.
Our next question is from Mr. Solomon.
Good afternoon. You know, the president's role, one of the major roles is raising money. We'd like to hear your plans for that and your skill set for doing that from externally, from private citizens or foundations.
Well, I can't say that I have a whole lot of experience in New Orleans, so
that's okay. That's our job to get you.
Okay, that's fair. as a young university, much as this university is a young university, we've looked toward our community for funding, and we've tried to develop the kinds of ties to our community that'll develop loyalty among people who really have no ties to the institution originally, not alumni, not graduate, not people who've attended, not people who've benefited from the university, but people who realize that the university is an integral part of what's going on in our service area. In order to do that, it takes a great deal of cultivation, working with people, getting them to trust that the university is that important to the community, and in order to manage to raise the money that we've raised, and we've raised more than $100 million over the last 10 years approximately. In order to do that, we build relationships with individuals and with companies that to the point where they're willing to support us. And we've seen endowed chairs completely funded by individual companies, by individuals, large scholarship donations as the result of large bequests that we've managed to cultivate over many years.
Our next question is from Mr. Kudrain.
Hi, Dr. Wartell. Hi, Ms. Wartell. Louisiana has a very performance-driven environment in higher education with emphasis on improving student retention and graduation rates. How would you engage the UNO campus to focus on improving student retention and graduation rates?
Well, it's simply become a fact of life that virtually every legislature and every higher education commission in the country has focused on the same sorts of metrics. Those metrics are a little uncomfortable for people in higher education because we really have never done it that way before. I mean, looking at retention, looking at graduation rates, while common sense would tell you that's important, it's very hard to affect those rates over a short period of time. The simplest way to affect them is to raise entrance requirements, for example, and that's unacceptable when you look at the kind of access that a UNO needs to provide to students. So engaging the community itself requires new ideas. It requires developing people's belief that they're a part of the solution to that problem. They have to realize there's a problem to start with, but the fundamental statement of the problem is that we're required to do it. And buying into a collaborative solution is something that you develop through leadership.
Our next question comes from one of our student members, Mr. John Lombardo.
Dr. Wartell, Ms. Wartell, distance learning is one approach to reaching new markets and providing existing students with alternatives to completing studies in a timely fashion. What has been your experience in this area, and what is your vision for distance learning at UNO?
Well, about 15% of our courses at IPFW are taught through distance, and it's become not just an essential part of the education of students who actually live far away, but it's been a choice of convenience for students who live on campus. If they don't want to get up for a section of, who knows, introductory chemistry at 8 o'clock in the morning or 7:30, it's a whole lot easier to take it by distance, and they will choose to do that. So it reaches more than just people who are at a distance, and I think it's becoming more and more a part of our culture as we buy into the kind of technological competence that our students have. They're much more comfortable sitting in front of a computer and learning than I would ever be.
Thank you.
Dr. Wartell, I want to compliment you on using chemistry as the subject matter that they would not want to get up at 7:30 in the morning for.
It does come naturally.
Since you are a chemistry professor, you're probably You probably had that experience at some point in your career. Our next question is also from one of our student members, Mr. John Minio.
Dr. Wartell, Mr. Wartell, good to see you again. My question is, obviously, as we were talking about before, with limited funds, collaboration becomes one of the ways that you can get around that. And especially in our state, it's very important that UNO has good collaboration with other 2-year and 4-year institutions around it in the whole state area. So could you maybe speak a little to your experience in making those kind of collaborations and what opportunities you see coming from those collaborations?
Well, first, with respect to community colleges, my current institution has the most fulsome set of collaborative agreements with our Ivy Tech, which is what our community college is called, of any in the entire state. The numbers of 2+2 programs, the numbers of transfer programs, the support for transfer programs is extensive. But with respect to 4-year programs, it only makes sense to look at areas of strength that various universities have and to try to capitalize on those areas of strength. And it's really easy to imagine students taking courses at other universities where they weren't offered at a given university like UNO. So those collaborative arrangements can be very productive and actually very efficient.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Dr. Neil Moroney.
Hello again. We spoke about this a little bit before, but could you please share with us your philosophy on shared governance and maybe some examples of some successful collaborations between you and faculty and staff?
Well, we have extensive communication with our faculty, and we work on a model of shared governance that I think is very healthy. You have to understand that we at IPFW live in a fairly complicated system since we have both Indiana and Purdue programs and faculty on our campus. And so our Fort Wayne Senate has a speaker of the Indiana faculty, a speaker of the Purdue faculty, and a presiding officer of the Senate that we deal with. We meet regularly with those faculty leaders, but more than that, we have a highly ramified committee structure that is not at all reticent about giving us advice on a regular basis. And that advice is welcome. You make better decisions the more you collaborate and the more interaction that you have. But that's only a part of the shared governance issue. The other part is really open and full communications, and we have I don't know what to call it. We do something on our campus that I think is fairly unique. We call them Chancellor's Chats. It's fairly euphonious. I meet with 12 to 15 mixed faculty, staff, sometimes students, on a 3 times a week about basis, and we discuss anything they want, so that there are very few rumors that transfer around the campus that aren't really true. There are very few problems that aren't brought up at those sorts of interactions, and nobody's particularly reticent about either criticizing or praising or bringing up literally anything that they want. And we've solved an incredible number of problems that way. We've solved trivial ones, like a custodian telling us that we're foolish to buy different kinds of vacuums when we could buy one brand of vacuum and cannibalize them, which is a pretty good suggestion when you think about it. To more serious things like faculty members feeling like their departments are treated poorly in terms of numbers of positions that they get, or S&E dollars that are supporting their particular department, or even folks feeling that they're being unfairly treated in any of a number of other ways. It's a very, very useful tool for making sure that everybody on campus feels a part of what's going on.